Thanks so much once again to Al for our challenge this week. We have access to his Spotify data, which is really interesting just to kind of look through, analyze, and see how things change over time with music taste. So what we're doing for this challenge is we're just basically finding out how the top 100 overall all-time artists for him, how has their ranking changed each year, which one of them have completely fallen out sort of thing, and we'll take a look at that. So first of all, we want to change this field here, this MS played, which is in milliseconds. We want to make that a bit more digestible, a bit easier to read for us. So we want to turn it into minutes played instead. So the way to do that, if I open up the calculation, would be to divide our MS played, our milliseconds played, by 1000 first of all, so because that will change our milliseconds into seconds, and then into minutes. From seconds to minutes, we would divide by 60. So that's why it's 1000 times by 60. And we're just rounding that to 2 decimal places for a little bit of clarity there. Okay, next up, if we're going to analyze by year, then we need to go and look at our date field all the way at the end of here, and we want to basically just pull out the year date part each time. So if I go to that field there, so I've duplicated this TS field, it's at the start here. So I've duplicated it, and then I'm just going to go to the ellipsis menu here, and I'm going to convert my dates into the year number. So then when I do that, I end up with this here, which I've just renamed to be year. And you can see it's kind of calculating. There we go. We clearly have more different artists, different tracks. We have more rows in 2015, and obviously 2022 it hasn't finished yet. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's why we have less data for 2022. But as long as we bear that in mind as we do our analysis, it won't be too drastic. Looking at the analysis, if we can still perform the analysis, that'll be fine. We just need to bear that in mind when communicating any outcomes. Okay, so then we're going to aggregate our data. So first of all, we're going to aggregate it overall, so grouping by our artist name, summing up the mins played, then we're going to work out the ranking there. So if I go to the minutes played and go to the ellipsis menu there, go to create calculator field and rank, then that opens up for us this dialog. So we're looking to rank in a descending order our minutes played. Now, because we only have one other field, our artist name, that is just going to look at ranking the artists. Okay, so our top ranked artists overall is Shinedown. That's the information that we get from that. Then we're going to do a similar thing here where we're just including the year in our groupings. And then similarly, our ranking calculation therefore has to also be grouped by the year so that we can tell for each year what our rankings are. So we just join those back together on the artist name, and we do a little bit of renaming if any of your field names have gotten a little bit confused thanks to the join. Okay, and then we're going to do our pivot so that we can reshape our data. So the reason we're doing the pivot before the filter is so that we can keep all the information about where their ranking goes before we do that pivot, because this will introduce some nulls where there are gaps basically. So we do our rows to columns pivot here, and we have our year field being the new column headers, and it's our ranking that we want to have down below. Now it doesn't matter that it's saying that it's summing the ranking because there will only be a maximum of one ranking per year, and so we won't get anything being summed together accidentally. But if it makes you feel safer, you can always choose the min or the max here instead. But I could just prove that to you very quickly by changing that to the max, and none of my values changed here. Okay, and finally we want to do that filtering. So we're filtering on the overall ranking field. If I open up that filter there, just from that three dots menu again, then I've chosen to do a maximum. So we want values less than or equal to 100. Okay, and then I think it's just really super fun, say, to look at each of these rankings and see how much higher up the list they were back at the start maybe. This one was number 1 in 2015, and then it's all the way down to number 334 by 2022. Some of them, I think, such as here, for example, look how they started to come in. They got to a peak in 2018 and then really started to slide down from 2021 and haven't even been really listened to yet in 2022. So that's all really super interesting, and I love looking at this kind of data. So thank you again so much, Al, for providing this data set and this challenge for us.